out of routine and process. But this morning when I made my way to the house of prayer, and that's somebody with me, I didn't come out of routine. I've come to get a word from God, because I've had so much disappointment this past week that I need God to speak to me, to let me know to hang on a little while longer. And that's somebody who knows what I'm talking about. His Galilean ministry has spread, and folk are talking about Jesus. They're talking about the miracle worker. So much so that Charles Spurgeon, the great theologian, takes a position on the noise and the news about Jesus. These men who are the characters of our text, 10 lepers, they have been victimized with a terrible, incurable disease called leprosy. Before you can appreciate and praise God for that breakthrough, you must have some degree of how bad off the lepers really were. They were in terrible shape. And according to Spurgeon, they got news about Jesus coming through Samaria. Now, Samaria was no strange place for Jesus. He had often visited Samaria. But there's something that we need to tell you theologically about Samaria. Samaria is not a popular place. It's a place where half-breeds reside. Half Jews and half Gentiles. They occupied this place called Samaria. You remember Samaria. Samaria, Jesus came by in St. John chapter 4. And this woman who came to the well, she came to the well in broad open daylight. She came to draw water, and it was certainly uncustomary and uncommon and almost unlawful for a woman to be carrying water in broad open daylight. She comes to this well in Samaria, and she meets a man whom she never seen before. The woman come to draw water, and while at Samaria, she takes her utensils and let her utensils down into Jacob's well. And when she got up her water out of the well, she looked up, and behold, she saw a man with long hair like, amen, pomegranates, eyes like flame of fire, feet like pomegranates, eyes like flame of fire, hair like lamb wool. And he began to engage with the woman. He said, woman, first of all, why are you here? She said, I come to draw water for me and mine. Jesus says, why don't you first give me a drink of water? She somewhat was rebellious, and Jesus told the woman, if you knew who you were talking to, because I have the ability to give you everlasting water, the kind of water that never runs dry. And I'm grateful to have that kind of water, the kind of water when hell hounds are on my trail, that I still got joy in the midst of my sorrow. I'm glad to have that kind of joy, that kind of water, the everlasting water, that when I die, if you hear my home going, don't worry about me. I've already got my ticket right. I've already got my hand and my name on the roll. All I'm trying to tell you is Samaria was no strange place to Jesus. Samaria is present-day Palestine. It was not much popularity about Samaria. But these men were coming through Samaria. According to Charles Spurgeon, they got news that Jesus was coming through Samaria. And so they made their way. But before they journeyed, before you can appreciate that one man, you must have some degree of what they had. And I declare, when you leave this Western experience, every one of us got something. Every one of us got some kind of sin, or some kind of hanger, or some kind of habit, some kind of issue in our lives that keeps us from getting into God's very presence. And I hope to God, before I sit down, you will look at your condition, knowing that Jesus can and he will fix it. Leprosy was an incurable disease. It would turn the leper as white as a sheet. Generally, the only friend a leper had was another leper. They lived in what was called in that day leper colonies. They had to be isolated. They had to live on the outsides of cities, towns, and villages. Lepers band together because they already had a death sentence on their life. But LA, it was just a amount of time that the leper would finally go to a grave. They had already been wrote off, because if you had leprosy, you was considered unclean. In fact, about if you had leprosy, according to biblical record, you had to publicly announce your condition. If you had leprosy before, you couldn't come in higher heights. If you did, you had to publicly announce, I'm a leper, unclean. If you had leprosy, you had to publicly announce, unclean, I'm a leper. What if in our day and time, people in this day and time have to publicly announce their condition? We got some in here. I don't know who I'm talking to. The home wrecker. What if the home wrecker have to publicly announce, I'm a home wrecker? We got some in here. What if the ditch digger had to publicly announce, I'm a ditch digger? What if the homeowner had to publicly announce, I'm a home wrecker, I'm a homeowner? What if the hell-raising church member had to publicly announce, I'm a hell-raising church member? If you had leprosy, you had to publicly announce your condition. And so these men were isolated. They were outside of city, towns, and villages. And they had death on their backs. It was just a matter of days that the lepers would soon die. Not only could you identify a leper with his or her saying, another thing about a leper, it victimized. It didn't make no difference from what culture, what race, what region, what city, what town, what color, what ethnicity you were. Leprosy had no perspective of person. And in those leper colonies, Jews and Samaritans, who normally didn't have no dealings, were in the same leper colony. We got some folk who won't sing in the choir because they don't like certain folk. But somehow other troubles will have a way of bringing the folk who don't normally get along together. Troubles have a way. Be careful how you treat one another. The very person that you mistreat might have to help you in your time of need. Be careful how you look down on others, because the very one you look down on might have to turn you over in some nursing home. Whatever you do, don't mistreat nobody. You don't know whose hands you're going to fall in. That's why I'm trying to treat everybody right, because I don't know what I might need down the road. These 10 men started running. What was the sense of urgency? Why are they running? What are they running for? Well, I'm glad